Hi, and welcome to Time Travel Talks, the series where I overly explain the different types of time travel used in film. So far, we've covered the time loops, linear travel, time skips, time windows, and time dilations. I guess you could say I've got too much time on my hands. Anyway, today we move on to one of my personal favorite forms of time travel theory, the time river theory. Now, the time river theory is quite an abstract concept of time travel, and it's hardly used in a single film, but does come up if the film has multiple entries or is a TV series. The reason for this is because it requires a long time to explain and show the effects of time traveling. That, and it may or may not have some existential philosophy attached to it, but we'll get to that part later. A time river can best be explained like this: a single line breaking off into multiple angles before ultimately reaching the same point at the end. Now, this theory is an extension of the double linear theory, in that the traveler keeps going back to fix the timeline, except this time, the traveler keeps going back again and again and again. Let's say that the trigger for the person traveling back in time is the death of someone, so now they must go back in time to try and prevent it. Only the death happens again. Let's say the first time they die in a plane crash, and the traveler then makes sure that the person does not get on that plane, only for that person to die in a car accident at the exact same time. So the traveler keeps going back again in order to save them from the plane and the car, but end up dying from a different method, such as freak yachting accident, in a fire, or a rogue carrier pigeon. In the end, the traveler realizes the person they are trying to save will always die, no matter how many actions they take to prevent it. This is known as fixed events, or flashpoints, or predestined moments, but the point is, they cannot be changed in the timeline. Even if the exact method of achieving it is different, the event will always happen as a key moment throughout history. Now this is where it gets the name from, the river aspect. Imagine the flow of time is like a river, constantly moving in one direction. Most people just go with the flow. However, a time traveler is able to throw rocks into the river and create ripples, or the change of current. Yet, despite being able to change the river slightly, the river continues down the same direction constantly, and true changes to the timeline never happens. Now for this example we're going to be talking about, I'm actually discussing the anime series Steins Gate as a perfect example of the uses of time river throughout its narrative. Quick side note though, the series calls this type of time travel world lines, but it's pretty much the same thing as time rivers. Self-proclaimed mad scientist Okabe Rintaro goes out while testing a new invention to find the murdered body of fellow scientist Makise Kurisu. He then sends a text to his friend telling him about the death, but his phone is connected to the new invention and somehow sends the text he just made back one whole week into the past. He then finds the same woman not dead. Okabe realizes that this machine is able to send text messages back in time, affecting people's decisions and changing the timeline. He uses this machine several more times through the power of time text and is able to make his friends' lives happier, each time switching to a new timeline. Then, a shadowy government agency attempts to steal the machine and ends up killing Okabe's friend Mayuri. Okabe uses the time text to send himself back in time in an attempt to save Mayuri's life, but she ends up dying in the exact same time, but through a different method. Okabe repeatedly goes back to try and save her, but she still dies, over and over and over again. Her death cannot be avoided. Now, we'll pick the rest of the story up later. For now, this series is perfect as an example to demonstrate the constant jumping back in time and different attempts all leading to the same outcome. At this point, we should probably address the elephant in the room about the existential threat I mentioned earlier. Using the example we gave earlier with the character still dying despite best efforts being made to stop this, the fact that they die no matter what. These are known as fixed events in the timeline, meaning they must happen for the timeline to continue. Some uses of this theory describe time travel as breaking the universe, and so these events and timeline is the universe trying to fix itself. If the death is prevented in a certain way, the death will still occur. It implies that there is some unseen force that dictates the universe and causes certain events to happen, regardless of any interference. However, not all is lost. Some uses of time river theory show that there are such ways to change the timeline, despite the universal forces, as shown in the rest of Steins Gate. After several hundred attempts of trying to save Mayuri and failing, Okabe falls into madness. It is then that he learns that undoing all the previous time texts will help save Mayuri, so he must go back and undo all previous time texts that once brought happiness to his friends, but now must undo it all to save Mayuri from her death, all to return to the original timeline when Makise Kurisu died at the very beginning. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. A girl from the future says that World War III will eventually break out, and a future version of Okabe built a fully working time machine which he then gives to his present-day self in order to save everyone, both Mayuri Kurisu, and preventing World War III. Okabe manages to successfully switch timelines to the perfect ending, saving everyone. This all links back to the river analogy. All of these small jumps and changes are just ripples in the river of time, by throwing small rocks. So to change everything, sometimes the traveler has to throw a boulder into that river. A change in the timeline so significant it can divert the course of history. Man, I'm really leaning into this river metaphor, aren't I? Another example of time rivers can be seen in X-Men Days of Future Past and, to a lesser extent, the Terminator series. I say lesser extent because it generally follows the time river rules in that Judgment Day is not prevented, just postponed each time in Like the River. However, this wasn't planned out from the first film and then just got added later after sequel after sequel after sequel, meaning the whole timeline is just a mess right now. But there you have it, all the jumps throughout time, all to the exact same point with the exception of completely altering history. Now, the reason why I love this so much is because it's a much darker narrative style. The character keeps jumping backwards in time trying to fix a problem, but the problem always happens despite having the power of time travel on your side. It also works well with the personality of the characters involved, as so many failed attempts takes its toll on the psyche of the character. Anyway, there you have it, another time travel theory to discuss, amongst the many I've already talked about in great lengths. Man, I wish I had the ability to go back and talk about all these theories all over again, because it was just so much fun. Yeah, why not? Hello, and welcome to Time Travel Talks.